Ask 90% of wrestling fans what a run-in actually is, and they'll tell you it's a match-ruining shenanigan. But as with a lot of things in this industry, they only become a problem when they're not done correctly. But when executed at the right time, for the right reasons, and most crucially, in the right manner, outside interference like this has the potential to produce some of the most exciting moments in wrestling history. We've all done it, allowed our minds to wander about the finish of a particular match and found ourselves glancing at the ramp more often than we were looking at the ring. Sometimes the perfect end to a great story involves using some of the supporting cast instead of its lead players. And over the years, WWE has managed to deliver a handful of truly brilliant run-ins. My name is Adam Cleary, and these are the 10 most exciting run-ins in WWE history. Number 10, Kurt Angle, Survivor Series 2001. Obviously, yes, 32-year-old me knows that the invasion was a steaming pile of bum soup, but 14-year-old me watched the entire angle with his stupid teenage face pressed right up against the screen. This was it. After a storyline that started with Shane O'Mac stealing WCW from under his father's nose, we had an all-or-nothing winner-take-all match for both companies, and you had absolutely no idea who to trust. Having earlier been eliminated from the 10-man matchup, it was Kurt Angle who would return in the contest closing stages. He battered his supposed partner Stone Cold Steve Austin with his own championship and allowed The Rock to capitalize and score the win for Team WWF. For the kayfabe stakes involved, the crowd's reaction to Angle's actions and Paul Heyman's famous last words of "Thank God! Here comes Kurt!" This was brilliant. Number 9, Edge. One Night Stand 2006. There's going to be a recurring theme here that run-ins are very tricky to get right. But when there's literally a sign in the arena that says, "If Cena wins, we riot," then it's a safe bet that interference at the end will probably go down okay. With ECW's now infamous One Night Stand show having gone swimmingly up until this point, the crowd were baying for RVD, their boy, to beat WWE's Golden Goose. But, I mean, just think about that sentence. There was no way on earth Vince McMahon was going to let their top guy put over a stoner. Surely. Thankfully though, Edge emerged in a badass biker helmet and trench coat to hit Cena with a spear through a table. This was greeted with a resounding "Thank you, Edge" chant from those gathered in attendance. Van Dam would follow up with the 5-star frog splash before Paul Heyman sprinted to the ring to count the 1, 2, 3 himself and crown RVD, and I still can't believe I'm saying this, the new WWE champion. Number 8, the NWO and DX, WrestleMania 31. Right, look, okay, I'm not including this one because it's good per se. I think in hindsight it might actually be very not good, but there was just something about that NWO DX carry-on at WrestleMania that's worth talking about. Back at WrestleMania 31, in Triple H's long-awaited meeting with Sting, the Game found himself in trouble. Thankfully though, his boys in the back, specifically X-Gun, Road Pack and Billy Dog, would come to his rescue. Horrendously unfair on Sting, but hey, nostalgia isn't that great. Big shame though that Sting had just never been part of any seminal wrestling stables over the years, or else someone might have come to... okay, here we are. Here is Mortal Enemies from WCW. This makes sense. Kevin Hogan, Scott Hogan, and Hulk Hogan all sauntered down the aisle to spark a cross-promotional brawl some 15 years in the making. It was the fantasy booking wet dream of anyone in their mid to late 30s, and yeah, it was just a big deal, wasn't it, regardless of how little sense it made. Number 7, Goldberg, No Way Out 2004. Sometimes, and by sometimes I mean literally in this example, a run-in doesn't even have to be the most memorable thing about the match, as was the case in the WWE Championship bout at No Way Out 2004. Brock Lesnar, the champion, was defending against Eddie Guerrero, who had reached the absolute pinnacle of popularity thanks to his much-loved lie, cheat, steal gimmick. You remember this match almost exclusively for Eddie countering the F5 onto a title belt, but it did also include one of the all-time great run-ins. Goldberg, appearing seemingly out of nowhere, speared Lesnar into a different TV show continuity and departed. What's amazing about this though is that it somehow didn't tarnish Eddie's win at all, because his gimmick was all about victory by any means necessary. A perfect appearance, a perfect run-in, a perfect spear, and a perfect moment. Number 6, Kane, Bad Blood 1997. Our earliest entry to feature on this list comes from Bad Blood in Your House from 1997, and it's notable for a number of reasons. Not only did this run-in come during a predictably awesome contest between Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, but it was the first ever Hell in a Cell match. To top it all off, it also marked the long-awaited WWE debut of Kane, but I mean, you know all this. Mid-match, with The Undertaker looking to finish HBK off, the arena was plunged into darkness. An ominous overture would then fill the airwaves before Kane appeared, flanked by Paul Bearer, amidst an eruption of fire on the entranceway. "That's gotta be Kane!" cried Vince McMahon on commentary as the behemoth ripped the cell door literally from its hinges. He stood face to face with his long-lost brother before another massive eruption of flames preceded a tombstone to the dead man. You do not get any better than that. Well, aside from the next 5 entries. Number 5, The Undertaker, Judgment Day 2000. 3 years after falling victim to Kane's emergence at Bad Blood, The Undertaker would try his own hand at this interference malarkey. While this obviously didn't represent Taker's debut, it was nonetheless the site of the most drastic twist his character had ever seen. The dead man reinvented himself as the motorcycle-riding, leather jacket and bandana-wearing American badass. In hindsight, now incredibly camp. The run-in itself would arrive during The Rock's Iron Man match against Triple H, with the scores tied at 5-all and just a few minutes remaining on the clock. Rather than prompting the usual Undertaker lights-out technique, this time an eerie message simply started playing on the Titantron, closing with that chilling "He's here" line as Taker balled down the ring atop a motorbike that definitely wasn't overcompensating for anything, mum. He comes in, cleans house, accidentally hands the win to Triple H, and nobody in the entire arena could believe what they'd just seen. Number 4, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Backlash 2000. Just 3 weeks prior to the previous instance, Triple H and The Rock had found themselves in a similar situation as the victims of an uninvited visitor. Though, once again, it didn't necessarily ruin anyone's day. Again, Triple H's corporation buddies were doing their damnedest to screw over The Rock, with Vince McMahon striking the Great One with a chair under the watchful eyes of Patterson and Briscoe. Now, it was a long time ago, admittedly, but I'm pretty sure Raw went off the air like this about 50 times that year. Just as the game looked set to dish out a final pedigree, though, that familiar sound of smashing glass brought the entire arena to their feet. Stone Cold Steve Austin emerged from the back, making his return after being run over in storyline a few months ago, and he tried to murder everyone. Possibly the only person more excited than the collective Washington, D.C. crowd was Jim Ross on commentary, whose trademark screams of "Austin! Austin! Austin!" perfectly punctuated the chaos he left in his wake. Number 3, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Raw July 16th, 2001. Now look, yes, you might think this should be number 1, and to be totally honest, I wouldn't argue with you if you did, but come on guys, once more we're feeling everybody together, it's my list. This was, without doubt, where the entire invasion angle peaked. Having ignored Vince's calls to be the old Stone Cold again, Austin, pool cue in hand, arrived just in the nick of time to save his WWF teammates. The tease continued as we saw more and more shots of Austin fighting through the corridors until finally, the anticipation reached its climax with that signature sound of smashing glass. Once he finally got to the ring, anyone and everyone with a Pulse and an Alliance t-shirt was promptly dealt a stunner. Austin well and truly saved the WWF's bacon, but sadly not the angle. Number 2, Seth Rollins, WrestleMania 31. You would be forgiven for thinking that the earlier entry of DJX and the NWO was the biggest and best run-in from this particular WrestleMania, but no, you idiot, it wasn't even close. In the closing stages of the WrestleMania main event between Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, the contest was delicately poised. Basically, Brock forgot that wrestling wasn't real for a few minutes and minced Reigns to a bloody pulp. But Roman, as is very much his thing, held on and started to stage something of a comeback. Cue the thunderous double bass of Rollins' entrance music, and much to the delight of the California crowd, Mr. Money in the Bank came pelting down the ramp like a man sent back in time to the exact moment he accidentally drank bleach. It was unprecedented, unexpected, and almost unbelievable at the time. A brief exchange ensued before Rollins finally hit Reigns with a curb stomp to pull off the appropriately dubbed heist of the century. Number 1, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Raw January the 4th, 1999. If you want to pull any data from this list, it's that A, WWE had run-ins down to a goddamn art form in the Attitude Era, and B, Austin was their Picasso. So, January the 4th, 1999, preteen me had been allowed to stay up and watch Raw on the Friday night because it was my birthday that very week, and my favourite wrestler of all time, at the time, Mankind, was in a title match. Not for the first time, Austin found himself intruding in one of The Rock's matches, only this time during his Corporation days. As a ringside brawl broke out between D-Generation X and the Corporation, Austin took it upon himself to set things straight in the ring. Entering the fray, he wasted no time in seizing a chair and slogging The Rock over the head with it, paving the way for Mankind to get the cover and score an emotional maiden WWF title win. It sounds simplistic, and, well, it was, but what made this such a memorable run-in was the utter pandemonium it caused at ringside. Awash with panic, Vince McMahon was absolutely seething at seeing Austin thwart his plans, while Austin himself responded with a volley of abuse and middle fingers, as well as tossing his hat at McMahon in a final act of defiance. The scenes were the perfect summation of the entire Attitude Era, making for a moment that will likely be remembered forever as one of the best run-ins in wrestling history.